What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to Not Your Average Meta, an MTG Commander channel dedicated to bringing you decks and commanders you wouldn't normally find in your average meta. This week's video is brought to you by our new channel sponsor, International MTG. If you're looking for competitive pricing on your favorite MTG cards, old and new, be sure to check out the International MTG store and TCG Player, link in the description of this video. This week on Not Your Average Meta, we're bringing you another fun game that we recorded down at the Hobby Horse in Taylorville, Illinois. Speaking of, we would like to shout out our second full-time channel sponsor for Season 3, The Hobby Horse. If you're ever in the Central Illinois area, be sure to stop in and check out the store as well as saying hi to Martin. This week's matchup features Patrick making his first appearance on the channel, playing his mono-green Omnath Locus of Mana deck, Foil returning this week, playing his new spell-slinging Melek Izzet Paragon deck, Foggraw back after taking a week off, playing his Hallar the Firefletcher kicker deck, and then Justin playing another game with his Silumgar the Drifting Death changeling deck. Now that we have our fighters, let's step into the Thunderdome and see which deck will come out on top. Turn 1, Foil plays a Scalding Tarn, paying the life to crack it in order to go get a land. Fog plays a Throne of Makandi, then pays 1 for a Basilisk Collar. Justin plays a tapped Dismal Backwater for turn, gaining a life. Patrick plays a Forest and passes. Foil draws and plays a Mountain before paying 2 for a tapped Fire Diamond. Fog plays a Forest for turn, then pays 1 for a Wayfarer's Bauble and another 1 for Reclaim the Waste. He then passes while he goes to get a Mountain to put into his hand. Justin plays a Swamp, then pays 2 in order to suspend a Profane Tutor for 2. Patrick plays another Forest for turn, then pays 2 for an Emerald Medallion. Foil plays another Mountain for turn, then pays 3 to cast Aria of Flame, which has each of his opponents gaining 10 life. Fog plays a Mountain for turn, then pays 2 to crack his Bauble in order to go get another land to put into play. On his upkeep, Justin removes a counter from his tutor and then draws for turn. He then plays another Swamp before paying 3 for Phyrexian Arena. Patrick casts a discounted Sylvan Caryatid for turn and then a Rampant Growth, going to get another tapped Forest from his library while Foil cuts Fog's deck. Foil draws for turn and then passes. Fog pays 3, then casts his commander Hallar. He then pays to equip Hallar with his collar and passes. On his upkeep, Justin removes the last counter from his tutor and casts it for free, going to find a card in his library. He then loses a life and draws 2 cards before playing an island for turn. Justin then casts Malcolm Keen-Eyed and a Universal Automaton. Patrick pays 2 and casts his commander Omnath, and in response, Foil casts a Frantic Search, dealing 1 damage to Patrick off his Aria. He then draws 2 cards, discards 2 cards, and untaps 3 of his lands. Foil then casts Prismara Command, choosing the modes to destroy Fog's Collar and create a treasure token. This then adds another counter to his Aria, which he uses to shoot Justin for 2 damage. Foil then draws for turn and plays a Sulphur Falls before paying 3 for a Foil Classic Midnight Clock. Fog plays an Opal Palace for turn, then casts a Kicked Cinderclasm, which puts a +++ counter on Hallar and deals 1 damage to each of his opponents. Cinderclasm then resolves and deals 2 damage to each creature, and in response, Patrick puts 2 green mana into his mana pool, saving Omnath. Fog then goes to combat, swinging Hallar at Patrick for 4 commander damage. On his upkeep, Justin loses a life to his arena and draws 2 cards for turn. He then plays a base camp before casting Savitri and uptaking her, targeting Hallar. Patrick taps out and uses 1 green mana from his pool to cast a Hydra Omnivore. On his end step, Foil delves away some cards in order to cast a Dig Through Time. This then adds another counter to his Aria, which he uses to shoot Fog for 3 damage. He then looks at the top 7 cards of his library, putting 2 into his hand and the rest on the bottom of his library. Foil draws and plays an island for turn. He then casts his commander Melek and reveals the top card of his library. Fog casts a Vision of Dominance, adding a counter to Hallar before doubling the number of counters on them. On his upkeep, Justin takes a damage off his arena and draws 2 cards for turn. He then casts Frantic Search, which has him drawing 2 cards, discarding 2 cards, and untapping 3 lands. Justin then plays an island and taps out to cast his commander Silumgar. He then upticks Savitri again, targeting Hallar. Patrick casts a Loyal Guardian that goes to combat, putting a +++ counter on each of his creatures before passing. Foil draws for turn, then reveals the top card of his library. He then casts a Spark Double, who enters as a copy of Melek. Foil then casts Opt off the top of his library, creating 2 extra copies, which then has him scrying 1 and drawing 3 separate times. He then plays a Command Tower for turn before remembering to add a counter to his Aria, shooting Savitri for 4 damage. Foil then casts Birgi and passes. Fog draws for turn, then casts Challenge Ignition, targeting Hallar, and in response, Patrick uses the last of his green mana in his mana pool to cast a Worldly Tutor to go get a creature to put on top of his library. Hallar then deals 7 damage to each of Fog's opponents and each other creature on the field. Fog then goes to combat, swinging Hallar Justin, paying the 2 life for 7 commander damage. On his upkeep, Justin takes a damage off his arena and draws 2 cards for turn. He then plays a Swamp and casts a Patriarch's Bidding, choosing Dragons, while Foil chooses Gods and Patrick chooses Plants. They each then return their chosen creature types to play. Justin then uptakes Savitri. Patrick draws and casts an Aaliyah via God of the Hunt before swinging his Hydroid Fog for 9 damage, which then deals 9 damage to each of Patrick's other opponents. On his upkeep, Foil sacks his clock, which has him shuffling his hand and graveyard into his library and drawing 7 new cards. He then draws for turn and casts a Talisman of Creativity. He then uses his Burgundy mana to cast Ragavan and passes. Fog casts a Shared Summons for turn, going to get 2 creatures from his library to put into his hand, before paying 2 to cast a Sakura Tribe Elder he tutored for. On his upkeep, Justin takes a damage off his arena and draws 2 cards for turn. He then casts Hammer of Nizan, which he equips to his commander when it enters play. He then upticks Savitri again and passes. Patrick draws for turn and attempts to cast a Primordial Hydra, which immediately gets countered by Foil with an Arcane Denial. Foil then adds a counter to his Aria and shoots Patrick for 5 damage. Foil plays an island for turn, then he and Patrick both remember to draw off the Arcane Denial trigger. He then pays to recast his commander again and reveals the top card of his library. On his end step, Fog sacks Steve to go get a land to put into play. Fog draws and pays to flashback Visions of Dominance, adding a counter to Hallar before doubling the amount of counters on them again. He then casts a Kick Sprouting Goblin, adding a counter to Hallar, which deals 11 damage to each of his opponents. Fog then searches his library for a land before swinging Hallar at Patrick for 14 damage. Patrick then blocks with his Hydra but still takes 5 more commander damage. On his upkeep, Justin takes damage off his arena and draws 2 cards for turn. He then plays a tapped Path of Ancestry before casting a Siphon Sliver. Justin then goes to combat, swinging both his changelings at Fog, who blocks one of them but still takes 2 damage while Justin gains 2 life. He then upticks Savitri again, targeting Hallar. Patrick plays a Karn's Bastion for turn to cast a Verdos Gearhulk, which then gets countered by Justin with a counterspell. Foil draws for turn, then reveals the top card of his library. He then plays an island and casts an Archmage Emeritus. Fog pays 3 to cast a Kicked and Blazing Golem, which adds a counter to Hallar and deals 12 damage to each of his opponents. This then eliminates Justin and Foil from the game before it takes Patrick out with commander damage. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you can see more games and decks you wouldn't normally see in your average meta.